All right, welcome back, everybody, for another episode of Dollar Bin Digging. This is the video and article that I do for comicbookinvest.com, where I talk about those books that are still probably tucked away in those cheap boxes, those dollar boxes, those discount bins, wherever you find your cheap comics, whether it be a half-price books, Books a Million, Goodwill stores, flea markets, yard sales, your LCS. This is stuff based off of some of the recent news, announcements, rumors, things going on in the comics where you can find some related things in kind of a fun scavenger hunt kind of style. While some of them, yes, might be valuable books, in a lot of cases, these are things that are more just kind of tougher to find, and you're not going to get rich, but this hobby can be fun. It doesn't all have to always be about the flip, because you know the expensive books. I don't need to tell you the expensive books. You should know them already. And if you don't, well, there's plenty of older videos you can go back and check for those. This, I have to get to the point after 230 articles to start reaching. I do 4 or more comics each time out, 230 times. That's thousands of books I've talked about already. So with that, I've got a couple more that I still think are kind of interesting, and I think you might find interesting. So all you got to do is hang on for a few seconds after the intro, and I will be right back. All right, so for this week, where are we going to start off? I think we should start off over in the DC universe to kick us off here. We're going to start off with DC introducing something more deadly to some Supermen than kryptonite. Ooh. Apparently, Ultraman, who is that kind of Earth, is it Earth 3 or Earth 2? I think it's Earth 3. Kind of like the evil version of the Justice League. Ultraman is the evil version of Superman. He created, or he has this weapon, apparently, that was mentioned in the new comic, this Adventures of Superman John Kent that came out this week, Road to Injustice. In this book, it's mentioned that he has something that will weaken Superman at a cellular level, or some sort of weapon stronger than kryptonite, I guess, being talked about here by Lois to Lois. That is like the Red Tornado version of Lois that we met in Earth 2. So we'll get to her in a second. But that's apparently the story going on here in this Adventures of Superman John Kent. Now, we all know that Crime Syndicate version of Ultraman first appeared in that Grant Morrison graphic novel. That's already kind of pricey. Plus, it's a graphic novel, so you're not going to find that in a dollar bin. That was where they first appeared. They kind of reworked them a little bit and kind of, I think, tweaked their origins a bit when they came over with the New 52 and like that DC stuff. So we're going to look at the kind of reintroduction, I guess, of the character of Ultraman, which we could point to this Justice League number 23 from the New 52. And inside the guts of this book, during the Trinity War with Darkseid and all that fun stuff, we get the Crime Syndicate brought in. So again, this is kind of like a new revamped kind of version of them brought into the New 52 universe, and it's kind of carried on, since then. But there we go, Ultraman, as well as the other, the cast of characters from that Crime Syndicate being brought in this issue of Justice League. And this is still a cheap book. Again, it's a decent read, something to pick up. The art's not bad. It's kind of a fun thing for you to go and dig out of a box, because these are out there. Because this was a decently printed series, a popular series, if you will, at the time. So there are plenty of copies out there, and you can see here, even by the prices. Look, and one sold for $7.50. It's not going to break your bank to go and buy this if you were to buy it online. But I'm telling you, go find it for $1 in a dollar box. Don't even pay the $7.50. Go pay $1. Because even online, look at the asking prices: $3.60, $7, $2. You're not going to get rich. I'm not saying you're going to find this book, you're going to be able to flip it for a ton of money. That's just probably not going to happen. It's a reintroduction. It's not really a first appearance, but it's still a fun little thing to go and dig out of a box. So that's why I'm telling you about it, along with some of these other Earth 2 books that I think kind of tie into what's going on and what's about to go on in this series here with John Kent. Starting with here, Earth 2, number 19. Yes, this book is already a pricey book. That's why I'm putting this in here. So you already know, you should be looking for this already. This thing is already expensive, because also in this issue, there's some ties to Val-Zod, and Val-Zod first shows up in this issue of Earth 2. So, I mean, there he is. He's in a few more panels throughout the thing. You find out he's Kryptonian, and, Batman's got a kryptonite and all that. But this is the first appearance of Val-Zod. And like I said, this is already pricey. This one, you should already know about and be looking for to begin with, because look, recent copy sold $35, $45, basically. ASCII prices $40, $50, $30. So it's not cheap. This one you can make a few bucks if you can find it. But this isn't news. Like, this isn't a new thing. This is, again, the price has been here for a while. But I just wanted to remind you about it because it kind of ties into what we're talking about here. So while you're digging in the boxes, if you're looking for 19, you can keep an eye out for others in case you can't find this. Because, again, people have probably pulled it. And if they haven't, well, good on you for finding one. But why not also look for number 15 for kind of fun? Why would you look for number 15 of this Earth 2 series? Well, it's the introduction of this third version, Red Tornado Unit 1.3, this female version of Red Tornado. At this point, it's just an android. It's just an android, but it's kind of an introduction to that character we just saw, telling Lois about, this weapon that Ultraman has. So she's probably going to be hanging around, playing a little bit of a part in that story going forward. Here you go. Here's the first time we see that female version of this in this Earth 2. Also, not an expensive book. It was even hard to find individual sales for this. Copy from my comic shop sold for $2.50. So, again, not pricey. If you want to go buy one, there's copies for $3 to $2. Not a pricey book. Something you can find out there for cheap. And who knows? Who knows where it's going to go? But again, that's just the version of the android. It's not really the full form character where kind of a downloaded version of Lois gets put into this thing. Again, I don't really know. I'm just kind of picking things up as I was kind of doing this research. Apparently in the Earth 2 universe, I think Lois is gone, and her consciousness kind of gets put into this Red Tornado, and that happens in this issue in 17. So you have 15, 17, and 19. So look for these odd numbers while you're digging in there. So this issue 17 is where we see that her dad, General Lane, puts Lois's, I guess, a version of her consciousness inside this android. That's what Red Tornado is. He's an android, or she's an android in this case. So there you go. That's the creation of this character, and then I think she's been hanging around for a while since then. So keep an eye out for this one. This one I'd probably like a little bit more than just the android itself, because this is where Lois actually kind of melds with this android and becomes something else. But this book, also not expensive. $2. Copy sold for $2. Also cheap copies out there. Look, 99-cent, buy it now, $3. So this is even a $1 book online if you don't count the shipping. But again, I'm just telling you, go find it at a cheap box for fun. These are some fun little oddball first appearances. Check out the story. Read this wonky craziness going on in Earth 2, because this seems like a pretty wild story. I'm going to actually have to go back and actually read some of these things, because getting the synopsis and flipping through these issues to do some of the research and get these images for you guys, it got me curious. I'm like, I got to read what's going on in this, because this is kind of crazy. But seems like interesting stuff. Go check it out. Now we're going to pivot. We're going to pivot on over to Marvel and check out The Brood going down in the X-Men. This issue X-Men also just came out this week. And apparently we find out in this issue of X-Men that there's an X-Men character who is basically immune to the Brood, which you can see the Brood kind of takes over your body, kind of infects you like a parasite, and you start to convert and get that awesome, remember that awesome Silvestri cover with Wolverine? Is it 235? Something like that. I can't remember the exact number. You know the one with the Brood and Wolverine. Awesome cover. But this species lends itself for some pretty cool art and covers. And I always like it when they show up. So here we go in the current X-Men run. I think it's X-Men 20. Like I said, we find this out. Then we're dealing more with the Brood. And you got Jean Grey and, Iceman and all these characters. And speaking of Iceman, he's apparently the one who they can't hurt. You can only make him angry. Probably because he is actually made of ice now. He's not just a kid covered in ice. He's ice. He's living ice at this point. So I guess they can't infect him because maybe the temperature or just the makeup of him being like molecule. Who knows? Crazy comic stuff. But apparently, Brood can't touch him. So what are we going to look for? Based off of this, what kind of fun stuff can we look for based off of this story with the Brood and Iceman and all that? Well, we can look for the first appearance of the Brood, right? Still can be found in Uncanny X-Men 155. I love these older Uncanny X-Men books. I got them all here in my filing cabinet. Don't have the full run yet. I mean, I got to get those early sub 100 issues. Like there's a few I still got to get there, especially those very, very early ones. But this run, love this stuff. So in here, 155, we get introduced to the Brood. Brood fears nothing. They're kind of a couple appearances throughout this book, so it's not a big storyline involving them, but they're there and introduced here. And this book does all right already. So if you can find this for cheap, grab it, because it is the first appearance of the Brood. Granted, condition sensitive will weigh in heavily on the price that you're going to get. So you can see a copy sold for only 99 cents at auction, but best offer on 22 bucks as well. Again, condition sensitive. Also going with the asking prices where you can get more of a reader copy for like $5 and a higher grade copy might get you 25 to 30. Factor that in as well. So you can make a couple of bucks if you find it for cheap in a cheap box somewhere. But that's if you want to get your first brood. Now, let's look at Iceman. I like this issue of Uncanny 415. Yeah, 415. I mean, pretty interesting Nightcrawler cover. This was an oddball run of the time. Like, I didn't love this run, but this was when a lot of the secondary mutations started to happen for the mutants. And this is where Iceman went from being just, Bobby Drake covered in ice to his secondary mutation actually making him become the ice. He became more of a living ice thing. So this first happens here in this issue, which I think is a pretty important change for this character. After decades of it just being, he ices up, this was a big change for the character. And they changed the design of what he looked like for a little while there as well as him being an Omega level mutant, etc. So, I don't know. I like this, especially for cheap. And this one you can find for cheap. This is the run of X-Men nobody wants to buy. They're always in those boxes. But $3 to $12 was actually a surprise that somebody's paying $12 for this thing. But it happened a couple times, actually. Asking prices also in that kind of a weird bit of a range here, where it's as cheap as like under $3 to like $5 to $8. So, right, I was wrong. I thought this was going to be 99 cents all day, even on the market. Granted, you're still not going to get rich if you pay $1 and it's selling for $8. I'm just telling you that just don't go paying the shipping and all that stuff. Go dig in a cheap box if you're interested. You can find it. They are there. So go look for those. And like I said, it's kind of fun, right? It was an interesting little moment in Bobby Drake's history. Speaking of which, and speaking of the Brood, this one, I'm throwing these out there just because you should be looking for these anyway because of the awesome Frank Cho covers. But that first few issues of Ms. Marvel from, was it 2009, I think? She's facing off against the Brood. Cool story, awesome art. I like these covers as well. Keep an eye out for them. This is just kind of a fun little add-on extra because I was looking at the Brood and I was like, what else? I like these. So go look for them. You can see here, they do okay. They were talking like $10 to $15 for that issue 1. And look, a lot of the 3 I just mentioned, $22. So not super duper pricey, but you can make a little bit. And then number 1 is the best example I could find. It's like anywhere from 8 to 15 of the asking prices. There are some higher, obviously, but just take a look. Like I said, I just dig the art. I think these are pretty cool covers as well. And back to the old school Ms. Marvel days for Carol Danvers. All right, what else do we got here? Another article that was just kind of pointing out all the other new issues that were recently released was here. And they were pointing to X-Men, New Mutants, and X-23 headlines, these upcoming comics, yada, yada. So I've decided to focus in on the New Mutants part. The New Mutants Lethal Legion, which brings the team, kind of back together again, including a character we haven't seen in a little bit. Like, at least I don't remember seeing her in a little bit of a while. And that is Karma. She's right over here with the robotic leg. There you go. So she's there mixing it up now with Wolfsbane and, a couple of these other characters. A couple of new ones, I think, are being added too. But Karma. Why do I like Karma? Well, I like that Middleton run. And she was spotlighted on the covers of that Middleton run. Again, I've talked about these before. So she's there, got to center some of these issues I like from number 5. So probably kind of a fun character as well. Interestingly enough, her first appearance has nothing to do with an X-Men book or a New Mutants book. You could find that, if you're curious, in this Marvel Team Up, number 100. The Marvel Team Up was a Spidey crossover book, so it was Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four kind of teaming up in this, because again, it's Marvel Team Up. That's pretty obvious. I guess I shouldn't have had to explain it, but I did. In this issue is where we're getting introduced to this character of Karma, and the story really revolves around her. And I'm just putting this panel in here at the end because they kind of give her name there and what they're talking about, Karma. But she's introduced throughout this story, which is basically about her. So keep an eye out for that. As it's these Marvel team-ups, I find them out there. I don't know if I've found the 100, but I'm going to be looking because I didn't know that was her first. But you can see here, other people know it's her first. It could sell for like cheap $6, $20, but asking prices could be a little bit more. Cheap as $6. There are $10 copies, and there are $55 copies. Kind of all over the place. By and large, it's more on the cheaper side, but you're also going to get a little bit of a dinged up copy. If you want the higher grade, you're going to have to pay that higher price. But when you're digging in the cheap boxes, a lot of times you're going to get the dinged up versions. And some of these books, it's all right. It's okay. It's not a 9.8. It's okay to buy it. It's okay to grab it. It's worth your time and effort. In part, if you guys watched earlier, the top 10 and 10, where I was talking about those Century books, Century #1, like those mid-grade copies, those fine and very fine copies were nearing $100 for, dinged up versions of the books. It's not even high grade anymore. So, it's not, don't always dismiss a book just because like, well, it's not perfect. It's okay. If you're paying cheap enough, it's okay. Grab it anyway. And with that, I got one more oddball one for you. And this is going to be kind of a stretch for you to find in a dollar box, but I know I've seen weird things like this. Sometimes you go flip those cheap boxes. People who have collections, they're out at like the flea market, and they have like those old like Dell books and things like that. And that's what got me thinking when I saw this story that I mentioned Scar, that Disney's going to be publishing a Scar comic book. Well, guess who else they're giving a comic to? Maleficent. So Maleficent's getting her own series, or mini series, I guess you should say. So going to be interesting. A lot of variants will be coming. Probably some cool covers. She's got a cool design. There'll probably be some decent looking covers. But if you want, I guess, her first comic book appearance, because she showed up in the Sleeping Beauty, cartoon, the Disney animated movie. But Dell did adapt that. This thing is back in 1959. I know it's going to be hard to find something like this at a cheap box, but look for it, because sometimes these old Dell books, they just find their way, and it's just like, who's going to want this weird little oddball thing? They're collectors. And obviously here, I'll show you the inside where you can see she's obviously throughout the story, but there you go. It's Maleficent. But this thing sells pretty good, depending on the grade. There are copies all over the place. It goes way, way back. It was also, a lot of kids probably were reading this. So there's plenty of beat up copies, reader copies, torn copies with a lot of tape on them. But by and large, it does okay. Look, there's one that sold at auction with 20 bids for $36. So if you find it, you might make a couple dollars. And then you can see online asking some as high as like $70, $40. But then you got some of those beat up reader copies that are in that $5 to like $13 range, where you'll see the tears, you'll see mentions of the tape, you'll see that they're all kind of dirty and a little dingy looking. But sometimes you find a dirty and dingy book for $1, you can get $15 to $20 for it. That's not terrible, right? So just don't ignore it. Just don't bypass it just because it's not perfect. That's what I'm saying. That's what you got to do sometimes when you're digging in the cheap boxes, is you got to deal with a little bit of imperfection. And with that, that's all I got for you this week. I know it's a short week, but it's been a long week for me. Still got a few more things I got to do, trying to catch up on everything. So hopefully you guys found this interesting. Hopefully you found some books to look for this weekend. Thanks for stopping by and checking this out. Hopefully you're still enjoying this series as well as everything else I got going on the channel. Still having fun doing this stuff. Make sure you're checking out the shorts. Check out the members-only content. Just think about signing up if you're not already a member. If AOA didn't gift you a membership, go take a look and think about signing up, because I'm going to keep doing some more members-only content as well as doing the regular content, the live shows, everything. I don't know. I love this stuff. So hopefully you're enjoying it too. And with that, I'm going to leave you to the rest of your night. Thanks for stopping by and checking this out, and I'll see you soon. All right. Later.